Welcome, everyone. We are so glad that you've joined us for our Family Programs webinar, Sex and Healthy Relationships, Respect, Consent, and Care. This is part of our sub-series of topics for our webinars this summer that are designed especially for the parents and family members and guardians of our incoming new students. We are presenting this information on different topics with the desire that you will absorb this information and have a conversation with your student over the summer before they arrive. We've pulled out some particular topics that we think are very, very important to having that kind of a family conversation and arming our family members with more background about how we will approach these topics at Tulane before your student even arrives. So I'm very grateful that you've joined us tonight for this topic, and I want to introduce you to our panelists. The panelists will offer some background about how their department intersects with this topic, and you'll see that there's sort of, an intersection of care, support, and education regarding this topic. And these folks work together, and they work with other people on their teams and affect what we offer for students in some really significant ways. They're going to each talk a little bit about their area, and then we'll share some more information about how this comes across to your students, how they'll learn more about this once, while they're in the summertime, doing their preparation to come to campus, and then the things that happen once they're here. We want to keep the tone kind of more conversational, and we certainly want to reserve time for you participants to submit questions. So our panelists tonight are Alison Cofrancesco, who is the Director of Case Management and Victim Support Services, Marcus Foster, who's our Assistant Provost for Title IX Compliance and Education, Chelsea Hill, who is a Health Promotion Specialist in the Well for Health Promotion, which is a part of our Campus Health and Recreation Division, Margaret Martin, who's the Director of the Office of Student Conduct. So I'm going to invite Alison to talk first.
Thank you, Penny. And hello to everybody. And thank you so much for joining us on this very important topic. I know it can be a little difficult sometimes to talk about sex, healthy relationships, and consent, but it's such an important topic that I'm so happy that you're joining us right now. So our office, the Office of Case Management and Victim Support Services, we do a variety of different things, but for the purposes of this webinar, I'm going to kind of focus on the victim support piece. And really the main takeaway that I want you to have just from my portion of this is that, should your student be the victim, become the victim of a crime, during their time here, just please know that we have support available to them. When we meet with students who have been the victim of a crime, a lot of us are trained as counselors, but we don't actually provide clinical counseling within our department. But we sit with students and just kind of hear their experience, and through kind of their story, try to figure out kind of how we can be the most helpful. The main thing that we want is for students to feel safe within our campus and also within our community. And so based on kind of what the situation is, we immediately address any kind of safety concerns that might come up. Our goal is really to walk with them through their process of recovery, and also hopefully use our guidance and our expertise in working with other campuses, and other community partners to best assist them through the process. Kind of to kind of get into a little bit more specifics, when somebody is victimized, they can feel very confused, they can feel very scared, they can feel very nervous. And so we kind of see our office as a bit of a hub to help with managing what their recovery kind of looks like. And so, like I said, we work a lot with a lot of our campus partners, a lot of who are with us today, but also other ones, other campus partners as well, to address kind of what the students' main concern is. We also work a lot with parents because it can be very scary for a parent to be far away and then have their student kind of experience this. So some of the specifics is kind of the things that we can do. We talk to students a lot about, how do they report situations if that is something that they want to do. They can report to the school. They can also report to the community. They can, we have other things through the Office of Conduct that can kind of help them sort of feel more secure on campus. We work a lot with professors to help them through any academic accommodations that they might need. And also if they need any kind of medical attention as well. There's also, we manage an on-call system where anybody can reach out to us and they can reach someone 24/7 through our on-call system, and they can get assistance that way as well. So it's during business hours, but also outside of business hours. So again, just kind of the main thing that I wanted to kind of drive home is that if, should something happen, please know that there is support that's on campus, and we are available to assist students and help them kind of figure out what the next steps are for them, and kind of what the best decision for what their best decision is kind of moving forward. But I'm happy to answer any questions kind of towards the end if anybody has anything. But I believe Marcus is going to be the next to kind of address specific kind of Title IX issues.
Thank you so much, Allison, and thank you for that intro. Welcome, parents. I'm very excited to have this opportunity to connect with you all, excited to have your students join us in a few short months. Really just want to talk a little bit about the Title IX office and the work that we do. So here at Tulane, we truly believe that every individual should feel welcomed, a sense of belonging, and most importantly, individuals should feel that they are safe, should know that they are safe in their academic spaces, their residential spaces, as well as their employment spaces. So Title IX, for those of you who may not know, is a federal law that prohibits gender discrimination and sex-based harassment on college campuses. So my office is looking to work with any individual who has experienced verbal harassment on the basis of their gender identity, their sexual orientation, their gender expression. But then we're also here to work with folks who may have experienced sexual or physical violence. The Title IX office oversees the university's prevention, intervention, and response efforts. I'll talk a little bit about how we do so, but more importantly, you're going to hear from Chelsea and Margaret, who can share a little bit, particularly about their units and how they are acting in response to the work that we do. So first and foremost, I do think when we're thinking about prevention education, it's important that we all have a foundational knowledge, some foundational language on how to talk about this topic. As Allison had mentioned, talking about gender-based violence, sex harassment isn't the easiest topic. We want to normalize these discussions. We want to normalize having difficult conversations with community members. We want our students to be able to identify problematic behavior. We want them to be equipped to have the skills, the confidence, and the tools necessary to intervene should they see problematic behavior occurring and they're comfortable intervening. We want folks to know that no matter who you are, where you come from, how old you are, there is something that you can do to create a safer and healthier campus community. And we want to give you that language and we want to give you those skills. So when your students get to our campus, there's going to be a number of opportunities for them to engage in this work, to attend workshops, tabling sessions to really begin learning how they fit in creating that healthier environment for all. But there's also some education that's going to happen before they even step foot on our campus. So as I said, we know that we all have different understanding of this work. So we want to have that shared language, that common experience. So in a few short weeks, your students are going to be able to start to get access to some of our curriculum, some of our education. Chelsea will talk a little bit more about the ins and outs of that education, but we really want our students to feel comfortable with this material and know that there are some expectations when joining our community, that each and every one of us should be actively working towards creating safer environments for all. When we're thinking about the response, we work very closely with campus partners across the university, working with our folks in the Dean of Students office, student conduct, housing and res life, our university police, letting our community know that no matter where a person may be on their journey, in the immediate aftermath of an incident of trauma, we want folks to know that they do not have to go through this process alone. It's our position that we are never going to tell a person what they have to do, what they must do. Instead, we want to inform them with as much information as possible, as much information as they would like to receive, so they can make a decision that is in their best interest, a decision that they are comfortable with. So we will direct your student or the people they care about, because we know that gender-based violence, sexual violence, it impacts us all. So even if your student is not directly involved, they may know or care about someone who is involved in a particular situation. And we want folks to know that these are the offices that are available to support, whether it's the Title IX office, the Office of Student Conduct, case management, victim support services, letting them know that, again, that they do not have to process their experience by themselves, that they are going to be met with individuals who will treat them with respect, with fairness, give them ample opportunity to share their experiences if that's something that they wish to do, and then help them as they make that decision that's in their best interest. So really want folks to know that we all have a role in this. Our campaign to combat sexual violence is all in. So there are going to be numerous opportunities throughout your students' academic journey where this material, these conversations are going to be infused into the work that they're doing inside the classroom, outside the classroom. And we want those conversations to be happening regularly, happen often. And those are conversations that I encourage you to have with your students now. At the end of our session, you're going to be provided with some links. There's some great material to help you have those conversations with your students. What does it mean to engage in healthy boundaries? What does it mean to be a member of a larger community and practice responsible and healthy decision making? All of that is going to be provided to you, and it goes not just for our students but for our parents. If y'all ever have any questions, you will have our contact information. You have access to us, because as I said, it really is going to take all of us to do this work if we want to see that safer and healthier community for all. So thank you all so much for being here, and I look forward to answering any questions that y'all might have. And I believe I'm turning it over to Chelsea. Sorry about that.
No worries at all. Peace, everyone. My name is Chelsea Hill, and I am one of the health promotion specialists at the Well for Health Promotion. Just for some context, the Well for Health Promotion is the prevention health education arm of Campus Health. So Campus Health is a pretty large entity. It includes the Student Health Center, which is where students can go for their medical care. We also have the Counseling Center, the pharmacy, campus recreation, and then the Well for Health Promotion, which is a team of diverse professionals from varying backgrounds that provide preventative health education for the campus community around a couple of central topics. I'm specifically here to talk about sexual health and sexual violence prevention, But we also do talk to your students about alcohol and other drugs, mental well-being, sleep, stress, management, kind of all of those really essential pillars of well-being. And so my role is to help really lead the campus community around sexual violence prevention and sexual health. And so you probably are wondering, what does that mean? So sexual violence prevention is about giving young people the skills, knowledge, beliefs, and behaviors to make healthy decisions around their sexual health, their relationships, their own identity and well-being, and to also prevent them from making harmful decisions that hurt other people. So that's kind of the approach that we take, and we really focus on empowering students with information that they can use in their own lives in ways that seem most helpful to them, and really to also make good decisions around their health, their safety, well-being, and ultimately their success as a student and as a professional after their time at Tulane. So that's just a little bit about me in the well, and I will pass it on to Margaret.
Thanks, Chelsea. Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is Margaret Martin, and I'm the Director of Student Conduct for the university. I'm really excited to be talking with you all this evening. I'm a double Tulane alum myself. I did both undergraduate and law school here at Tulane. So I remember when my parents were getting ready to send me off to college, and one of the things they certainly told me was don't let us get a letter from student conduct, right? I know that's probably what you're thinking, and you hope that you never have to hear from me. And I hope you never do too. But a little bit about the Office of Student Conduct. My office is responsible for investigating, adjudicating all of the cases that we receive here at the university, whether it be sexual violence or otherwise. So if your student does become involved in some sort of situation where they feel like they've been harmed and they want to make a report to the university, my office will be the one reaching out, not to provide support, but to inquire about the student's desires for what they want to see happen next. So whenever it comes to sexual violence, we try to give the person who experienced harm as much autonomy as possible in the process to decide what makes the most sense for them. We have a lot of different sorts of student conduct processes here, some very formal and requiring a formal investigation, others informal with more of a restorative practice approach or an alternative dispute resolution approach as well. This applies both for our victims of sexual violence as well as those who have been accused of sexual violence. We have fair, impartial processes here in the Office of Student Conduct that we apply across the board with transparency as well. My personal approach to student conduct is one of education, right? So we know that your students come to Tulane to get an education. They are going to make mistakes along the way, as we all do. When they interact with my office, interact with student conduct, the goal is that they learn from their mistakes and take accountability and move on from it, right? Be able to think about what they've done and come out being a better student, a better person, and go out into the world as a professional. Of course, there are times, situations, and certain kinds of behaviors that do require students to no longer be members of our community, but those are really in extreme circumstances. So when it comes to the Office of Student Conduct, I know it's a scary place. I know when students get letters from us, they have really high anxiety. It doesn't necessarily need to feel like that, and I certainly don't want it to come across as such. So when you have questions about student conduct, or if your student experiences some kind of harm and we want to hold the person who harmed them accountable, my office is the place to come so that we can have a conversation about what we want to do moving forward and how we as a university can strive to have the safest community possible where we all are abiding by the same community standards. Thank you.
So next, we want to just demonstrate to families how students will learn about this topic. Sometimes when we have these webinars, families will feel like they need to be the one who's going to then translate all this information to the student, or they wonder, well, you're doing this for us as parents right now. How are the students learning this? So we've got plenty to tell you about here, and though we do want you to have a conversation with your student about this topic before they get here, know that they will be sort of immersed in resources and education and support with us. But we think that it helps you to kind of see how we lay a foundation for understanding about this topic and build on that as time goes on during their time here. So I'm going to turn things over to Chelsea just to talk about different elements of how we approach this in the summer before they arrive to prepare for joining us. The kinds of things that happen at the very beginning of the year when they're all here together for new students and orientation. And then just show you those different departments, outreach services, signature programs. And then we even have students involved in assisting other students with this topic. So I'll turn things over to Chelsea and she'll kind of guide you through some of these things so you kind of know how to envision how students are wrapped around this.
Thanks, Penny. So to kind of drill in what Penny was just overviewing for us, and Marcus also said this previously, but sexual violence prevention and education at Tulane is not a one and done thing. So there's often a lot of focus and concern around, what we're doing to prepare for college life. But I just want to share with y'all that the reality is that orientation can be such an overwhelming time that while we touch on these topics, we do make sure that students are getting sexual violence prevention and sexual health education often and continually throughout not only their first year, but their tenure as Tulane students. So as Penny said, I'm going to talk about what we do before, what we do at orientation, and then what we do throughout the first year. And then I'd like to highlight some of the things that we're doing throughout the tenure of a Tulane student. So as Penny just mentioned, we have our pre-arrival preparation. Part of that is programs like this, parent program guides that you might receive. You're receiving outreach from new student programs and first year programs, and they're really talking to you about how you're going to transition to campus and learn how to be a Tulane student. And part of that is sexual violence prevention curriculum. But you haven't yet gotten some of the content that's really, or at least that's going to be really specific to that. That's going to come in a little over a week, around the first week of July. And what those are going to look like is some pre-matriculation courses that are facilitated by Campus Health. They cover a couple of topics like mental health, alcohol, and other drugs, but they also specifically talk about sexual violence prevention. And those modules include 3 separate modules. So we're not just taking this lightly. We ask your students to spend a good amount of time on this. And the first of those modules is called Sexual Health for Students. That's a very 101 sexual health education, kind of biology education that most, at least would be most appropriate for an 8th or 9th grader, because we know that many of our students in the United States are not receiving that education. And then the second module is called Sexual Literacy for Students, which is a sex education course that might be more appropriate for a 9th or 10th grader. It's really more about communication, boundaries, healthy relationships, identifying signs of abuse, and resources to make empowered decisions around relationships and your sexuality. And that also includes making the decision to not be sexually active, to not explore sexuality, or to maybe save that for a different time in life. Those modules, or at least that sexual literacy, includes content around that. So what we're really talking about is empowering students to make decisions that are best for them around their relationships, their sexual health, and their sexuality. And those are based on the values that they, have inherited from their parents, from their upbringing, and from their school. So we're also really encouraging them to listen to themselves, to listen to their values, to listen to their instincts, and to make decisions that are right for them. And then still talking about pre-matriculation courses, there is the sexual misconduct for students, and this is more focused on the very basics of what sexual harassment and sexual violence are. Also what sexual assault is, how to identify those things, how to intervene as a peer if you see an unhealthy dynamic, and then what kind of resources, once again, that exist for students on our campus. So your students are actually taking all of that material between the sexual literacy and sexual health course and the sexual misconduct. They're getting all of that material before they even step onto campus. And the reason for that is that we want to make sure that before they get onto campus, before they even start to have to interact with some of these more challenging experiences, or even kind of start to think about what relationships might look like for them in college that they already have that material so that they're already kind of informed, especially if they didn't have those skills before they sat here before. Then once they're on campus, we go through new student orientation, and part of that new student orientation has a couple of different health topics, and one of those is, once again, sexual violence prevention. That programming is led by our amazing team of peer advocates. The organization is called SAFE, which stands for Sexual Aggression Peer Hotline and Education. And they are a group of students who receive 40 hours of initial training, 20 hours of annual training to provide confidential peer support services around sexual violence. And so they are, I want to clarify that they are by no means counselors or professional case managers. They leave that to the professionals on campus, but once again, they are peer advocates, navigators, who help connect students with important sources of support and information resources so that they can once again get connected to the professionals that we have on our campus. So just talking about that more, they lead an hour-long workshop and then small group debriefing sessions that every single new student goes through. So on their second day of new student orientation, they go through a workshop where they learn again about sexual violence and prevention. And then they are also immediately kind of introduced to a community on campus of students who can support them, who can educate them, and who once again can connect them to those resources on campus. So that all kinds of happens in the first month that a Tulane student joins our community, and before they even once again really step foot on campus and have time on campus. And then after new student orientation, our students are most likely going to, start to think, who do I want to be? How do I want to get acquainted with things? But where do I find my spot on campus? They're going to start to seeing sexual violence prevention integrated into those various touch points. So if they decide, they want to become a member for our fraternity or sororities, they're going to go through the potential new member education series, which is an awesome program facilitated by our Office of Fraternity and Sorority Programs. They require any student who's even thinking about rushing to go through a series of educational workshops, identity building expectation, really sessions where they kind of learn what does it mean to be a member of this community. And part of those, again, are sexual violence prevention requirements. I also want to mention that we're still working through our new all-in sexual violence prevention plan. And in that plan is various separate touch points that happen throughout the tenure of a student, like living on campus, studying abroad, taking on a new internship, becoming a student employee, where sexual violence prevention education is actually a part of each of those steps in their lives. So not only are they going to get quite a bit of sexual violence prevention and sexual health education just in the first couple of months and first years here, it's once again also going to happen consistently throughout various touch points that the majority of our students go through, like once again studying abroad or joining a frat, moving off campus, and all those things once again have sexual violence prevention indexed into those experiences. And then kind of lastly, we have additional student peer professionals who aren't as specifically oriented to this particular topic as the SAFE organization, but these other student mentor volunteers, they're trained paraprofessionals. So even the first year seminar peer mentors will mention it and make referrals to SAFE and TUF, who is our Tulane University peer health educators. Also addressing this and all of our resident advisors in housing and resident life, they also get training on the student affairs, which is our staff. And we have, just really prioritize making sure that if you are student facing, you have resources around how to be a supportive respondent to, or how to supportively respond to disclosures of sexual violence, how to interview in situations that kind of just don't seem quite right. And then again, what resources exist for students. So if a student is interacting with a peer mentor, a peer advocate, a peer educator, they're going to know about these resources, and we're going to have the information that they need to connect them with professionals. One other thing I think parents would be interested in is that sexual assault response resources are listed in every course syllabus. So it's something that every single professor builds into, and I think it's just really useful to know that we promote all of these resources in so many different ways. But every student has about 4 or 5 syllabi, so they've got that information kind of somewhere that is a document that they can refer to all of the time. And I just really think that's a good thing for families to know about. And another thing I think families should know about is that, again, we believe, Marcus kind of talked about this a little bit, but we believe that these conversations should start before students arrive. And ideally, they're happening with the people that students really respect and look up to, which is their families. So there are 2 guides that we have for parents. And I just want to say that this by no means is meant to tell you how to have these conversations with your young person. But if you're thinking, I would like to have these conversations, I'm not quite sure where to start, or maybe I would like to have some new ideas, or maybe some pop culture reference that I could use to start these conversations, I do want to direct you to these 2 guides that you see on the screen that the Well for Health Promotion has created in concert with the Title IX office. One of the guides is for parents to join the conversation around talking about sex and sexuality. And the other one is a guide for talking to your student about sexual violence. So the guide for kind of just joining the conversation around sex and sexuality is really identifying that sex is often an uncomfortable topic to talk about for most anyone, especially within a family unit. And especially when you're talking about a parent and a young person, or a guardian and a young person, that can just sometimes be an uncomfortable place to start. So these guides, or this guide is really meant to kind of help give some ideas on where you can start some of the suggestions about some resources, and also to kind of acknowledge that in some cases, parents, guardians, families might feel like maybe they need more information before they can even begin to have these conversations. So there's also resources here for if a family member feels like they would like to learn more, explore more. There's resources in there. And then the talking to your student about sexual violence, that's really a guide for how do you have these difficult conversations, and how do you take care of yourself while you're having those conversations. I personally can't imagine many things that would be more upsetting than you thinking about your student possibly being affected by any form of violence. And so we acknowledge that, and this guide is really to help parents again, think about what might be an important topic to talk about. How can I tell them about resources to help their friends or themselves as they need it? And then how do I establish myself as a safe person, that if my student or young person or one of their friends ever needed an adult to come and talk to, that they know I'm one of those people. So both of these guys, once again, are available. And Penny has linked, she will be linking them where you can find them. They'll also be, once again, sent to parents. So this is a resource that I just highly, highly encourage you. If you're looking for something along these lines, please check them out, see if there's something useful in there for you. And then we also wanted to show you that when you access the slides and they're in an archive, there are some additional resources as well that you may want to read over. And maybe Marcus might briefly go over this, but there are some additional resources that you can access on this slide.
Thank you so much again, Chelsea. And I'll keep it brief since Chelsea's done a wonderful job just outlining just some of the resources and the curriculum that's available to you. I just want to encourage y'all to spend some time going to the allin.tulane.edu website. As I had said earlier, All In is our comprehensive university campaign to combat sexual violence. We believe in being transparent to highlight and show the reality and the prevalence of gender-based violence on our campus. So there you will see some data related to our climate survey, as well as links to our annual security report that talks about different crimes that happen within our campus geography. But more importantly, you will see our strategic action plan. That is an action plan that was put together with over 50 members of our campus community, faculty, staff, students, looking at all of the different ways that we can encourage folks to get involved in this work and to find their voice in this work. So that is a plan that has over 115 action items. We are well on our way in accomplishing and achieving many of those different strategies and tactics. So I encourage you to spend some time looking at that and helping your student as they find their voice in this work. So just wanted to highlight those links for you. And as always, our contact information is on that website. So again, if going through that material, you have any additional questions, clarifying questions, please don't ever hesitate to reach out to the Title IX office, and we'll be more than happy to assist you.
Okay, everyone, now is the time where you can type in your questions, and we'll have our panelists respond. If we don't get through all the questions this evening, then the panelists will help compose answers to those, and we'll send those out when we send the follow-up email. That'll also have the PDF of the slides so that you can access all of these different resources we've linked in the slides for you. So please submit your questions, and we'll start to go through these. So one question is, how many new sexual assault and misconduct cases did you handle in the 23-24 academic year?
So I'll go ahead and I can answer that. So as of right now, my team is actively working to compile our data for this last academic year, 23-24. So that is still a work in progress, but I can talk a little bit about our data for 22-23 academic year. I would say that we received over 400 incident reports that alleged some form of sexual harassment, whether that be physical violence, sexual violence, or verbal harassment. I think the key in evaluating each report is any member of our campus community has the ability, has the right to file a care connection. Not every care connection is going to rise to a formal resolution. And informal resolution oftentimes will receive a report where an individual just wants to get access to supportive services. They want to have a absent excuse. They want an extension on an upcoming assignment. All of that is going to be available to them. Those are just a few of the accommodations that we provide for our students. I also think it's important that, because I know hearing that number, over 400 incidents were reported to us, that may be a little daunting for y'all. What I want y'all to know is we want people to be encouraged to file that report. We want to normalize our members of our community asking for help, asking for support. We know that the more education that we provide, we're going to see that uptick in cases being reported, because individuals now have now have those skills, now have that language to identify behaviors that, you know what, that behavior that incident, before I was just labeling it as creepy or strange, but now that I attended Chelsea's workshop, or now that I had a conversation with Margaret, you know what? Maybe I now have some new language. I now have a new perspective on that experience. So I am now empowered and feeling comfortable to report it and label it as such. So that is something that we also see. What you should know, as in closing, is like we are always going to be transparent. So we do have numerous opportunities throughout the academic year, sessions in the fall, sessions in the spring, where folks can see the data, not just the number of incidents that are reported, but how they are resolved. Are they being resolved informally, formally, or are there those matters that are an individual is just looking for supportive measures. So I would encourage you to have that conversation with your student as well, to keep an eye out for those workshops and those listening sessions. Just a shameless plug, follow us on Instagram, Tulane Title 9, excuse me. There we provide updates on all of the learning opportunities and workshops that occur throughout the academic year.
And Marcus, I just wanted to add one thing too. I wanted to also just clarify that we also have students that report things, well, to our office, and also other offices as well, that maybe did not occur during their time as a Tulane student, but perhaps that something occurred earlier in their lives, and they're kind of just realizing the impact that it might have on them, and so perhaps they're coming to our office looking for resources. And so there wouldn't necessarily be like a conduct next step for us, but our office certainly provides support to them and referrals if needed. So just wanted to clarify that too.
Yes, and certainly all 400 of those cases that Marcus mentioned don't go through a student conduct process. As I mentioned, we try and leave as much autonomy in decision-making processes with the person that's experienced harm as possible.
And so a student might report something and want the resources and support or medical attention or be referred to counseling, but they might choose not to proceed with a formal conduct case. And that's honored if that's the student's desire. So they're made aware of their options, but our staff members are going to follow the lead of the student and what they desire, and recognizing that might even change later down the road.
Yes, that is true. But just noting too that there are certain exceptional circumstances where the university has to take action if there's a really high risk at incurring in our community.
Yes. So understanding, preserving the safety of other people too, in the community is another dynamic in that. Thank you, Margaret, for that clarification on that. And I wanted to mention too that our counseling center often has support groups for survivors, and so that might even be something that would be applicable in that situation if this is something your student has experienced before they even got to Tulane. There's some resources for them to avail themselves of. So another question that we have is, in addition to the educational initiatives presented, what other initiatives has Tulane implemented to prevent sexual assault? So perhaps, Chelsea, you could go into a little bit more detail about some of those things that you all do in that proactive kind of manner. And then if any other panelists want to chime in with some other examples of educational initiatives for prevention.
Yeah, so the large task of my department is health education and promotion. So really that's kind of my wheelhouse, is to do education promotion. But we do have outside of education, definitely our student groups do programming as well. We do have I want to say, regarding our health promotion specialists in the other areas, like our alcohol and other drugs, trying to do more sober programming and talking about the intersections of alcohol and sexual assault and violence. It's really, I guess, really hard since I focus so heavily on education and prevention. That's really our focus, and we do see the validity in education. But again, we do have response. We do have a lot of systems in place to really help with healing and support and recovery. But we do a lot of heavy education as far as sexual health education, sexual violence prevention education, alcohol education, just really getting healthy relationship education, boundaries, communication. So I'm so sorry that we really just focus on educational initiatives. If any other campus partner, y'all do intervention and response, so I don't even know what y'all could answer to that question, but yeah, I'll let y'all chime in if y'all, but that's all I could say on our end as far as what we do to prevent sexual violence.
Anybody?
Yeah, well, I would say too, I think that the research shows too that I think education is such a big plays such a big role in the prevention of sexual assault. I think as we've kind of noted in this webinar, there are so many people that are not having these conversations. It's why we have leaned so heavily on the education piece of things as students come in. But we are also like we are training our faculty, we are training our staff, we are doing we're doing a lot of different things as far as making sure that our staff and faculty, if they are able to handle a disclosure, if somebody comes up to them and they speak about something, that they're sort of able to refer those students as well. But I think education and just conversation about this goes a really long way, because at the end of the day, our students are out there and they're mingling with each other, and so everybody kind of needs to be on the same page and have the same kind of language and be able to communicate, what their needs are.
I think if I can jump in on the response side, one of the reasons that education is so important and what Chelsea does is so important for our university is so that students do understand what constitutes sexual misconduct or sexual harassment or sexual violence within the Tulane community. So I would highly encourage you to review the student code of conduct with your student before they come to the university so they understand what affirmative consent means and how that looks like it could become a policy violation if they're not well educated on what that really looks like and what's that considered a violation of the student code of conduct before they come to Tulane. Having a good understanding of what is and is not permitted within the university is a great way to start with your student.
Could one of you speak a little bit about the bystander intervention model and what role that plays in all of this as well? Does anybody feel comfortable mentioning that?
I can jump in. Our Tulane University peer health educators oversee our bystander intervention program called One Wave. And how that plays into this is it's a requestable workshop by our peer health educators, although I am pressuring them to do more campaigns, outreach, and just having just conversations around being an active bystander. But how bystander intervention plays in preventing sexual violence is empowering each other. When we see something happening, we take a stance and we take action and we speak up and we support and do something. And so bystander intervention is really empowering, once again, each other to care for each other on our campus. And our program really, talks about what our climate looks like, just to re-emphasize sexual violence here at Tulane, the bystander intervention approaches and just steps. And then we really try to make it just as relatable to the Tulane student experience as much as possible. Whether they're out in New Orleans, whether they're here in our campus, just all the different, whether in the classroom, whether they're in our dining hall, we really try to re-emphasize that being a bystander can be used in any context. But when it comes to sexual violence prevention, it's on all of us to really take a stance and stand up and take action when we see something happening on our campus. So it's not a mandatory program that our students go through, but if they do want bystander intervention training, they can just request it through the TUF program. And also just our campus health Instagram, which I highly encourage our parents to encourage your students to follow. We also have a YouTube channel as well, Campus Health, Tulane Campus Health, that has a lot of educational videos and things like that really also talk about being a bystander and how to speak up, take action, and those types of things. So we're constantly also re-emphasizing those touch points throughout the year. And I know bystander intervention is heavily emphasized, especially in the first couple of months since we have our red zone kind of thing going on our campus, which happens from the start of campus to around Thanksgiving break, where we see a high instance of sexual violence. And so we've really emphasized bystander intervention, especially during the first couple of months here at Tulane. So that's that.
And if I could just
Yeah.
add just one thing to put a bow on this conversation, I would say, like, here at Tulane, we have a very passionate and vocal student body who cares deeply about this topic. There are going to be opportunities for your students inside and outside the classroom for them to be engaging in this work. So the All-In campaign, we have allocated funding for student grants. So a student has a particular interest in this topic. They want to enact change. They want to create curriculum or work with the Title IX office, work with the campus stakeholder. There's an application process that they can, fill out, and we're more than happy, and we're always looking for those new and innovative ideas that can help speak directly to our students, work directly peer-to-peer. So that's just another opportunity that's going to be available. But also within the classroom, there are going to be writing assignments. Students are going to be encouraged to attend the different speaking events that we put on. I'm sure a number of your professors, depending on the department, may be bringing in speakers of their own. I know the Title IX team gets in front of a lot of classrooms. So as I mentioned earlier, this work is truly ingrained in the student experience, and there's going to be ample opportunities for them to find their role in this work.
So another question is, do you have resources that focus on same-sex circumstances and relationships?
Absolutely. All of our material is inclusive of identity, whether that is on the Title IX website, our formal policies, procedures, our educational material. We want everyone to know that they belong here, that we are committed to seeing them succeed, and we want to make sure that the language we're using is inclusive, is affirming, and does not create any kind of additional harm for an individual. So we take that very seriously, constantly looking to review all of our curriculum, our content, to make sure that that language is affirming and is inclusive of all.
Yeah, and I'll just add too that when we meet with students individually, I mean, a lot of their situations can be, can be very kind of individualized. We kind of try to provide, what I'm trying to say is we're trying to provide individualized resources. And students hold a lot of various identities. And so I think in working with those students one-on-one, we can kind of better help refer them to the appropriate resources and resources that they feel comfortable with.
So participants, I'm going to sort of make a last call for questions, or to, ask you to submit a follow-up question if anything wasn't clear. But also know that we will send you the contact information for our panelists, references to those Instagram accounts that they mentioned, and it will give you the slides so that you can dive deeper into these resources and feel more prepared to support your student by having, a good conversation about this before they embark on their Tulane journey. And then so that you can check in with them over time while they're here, to see how they're adding to this education and how this is playing out in their lives as students here at Tulane. So I don't see any further questions, so I'll just thank our panelists. We're really grateful for your time this evening. And for all of you who joined us tonight, thank you so much. We know that this is a very important topic and one that you might be concerned and anxious about. So we hope that we've provided you with some reassurance that we take this very seriously, and that we've got multiple ways to address this and provide education and support, and challenge your students to learn some new things about their boundaries and their responsibilities to each other, so that they can have a safe and healthy experience in this regard. So if you have any feedback for us, please email families@tulane.edu. If right away you have a question for a panelist, you don't have that contact information yet, You can always email me and I'll forward that on to the appropriate panelist. So again, just remember families plural, @tulane.edu. So again, thanks to the panelists and thank you everyone. And we will close here in just a second. Have a good evening.